The sun over northern New Mexico had a cruel way of baking the dust into every crack of the land, leaving the earth thirsty and the people tired. But even in such a harsh country, where a man could lose his horse, his gun, and his life in a single unlucky afternoon, there existed a softness the desert could not chew up. And that softness, that untouched piece of God's handiwork, lived in Santa Fe and went by the name Maria Esperanza Delgado. The townsfolk called her La Virgin de Santa Fe, the Virgin of Santa Felas, because she lived under the watchful gaze of the church, and more because she seemed too pure for a land shaped by hunger, conflict, and blood. Her dresses were modest, her eyes gentle. Her long dark hair, always braided before sunrise, fell down her back like a river of midnight. She walked through the dusty streets as if her feet never touched the ground. Cowboys tipped their hats, old women blessed themselves, and even the roughest drifters lowered their voices when she passed. But purity draws danger the way a flame draws moths. And the frontier was filled with predators. Maria lived with her widowed father, Don Felipe, a once wealthy rancher worn down by hard years. He guarded her like a soldier guards a treasure chest, keeping her close to the mission church and warning her of everything that breathed beyond town limits. He feared drunks. He feared bandits. He feared the land itself. But most of all, he feared the Apache, not the peaceful bands that traded corn and hides, not the scouts who guided the army through the mountains. No, Don Felipe feared one Apache above all others, a giant, a legend, a nightmare whispered around campfires. The name alone made horses restless. Men spoke it quietly, glancing over their shoulders. Rumors painted him as a towering warrior, a man born without fear and carved from stone. They said he could track a man for days, that he moved through the desert without leaving prints, that his war cry froze a soldier's blood before the bullet left his gun. Some swore he killed for sport. Others claimed he stole supplies, cattle, even women. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: where Dakota roamed, the ground trembled. So every evening, when the church bells rang, Don Felipe would shut their door and bar it. His voice would crack with warnings: never wander far, never speak to strangers, and if you see an Apache, run. But Maria was young, curious, and the world outside Santa Fe tugged at her heart like a secret lover whispering her name. She wasn't foolish, just restless. The desert called to her with its lonely beauty. She often wandered beyond the old Spanish ruins to gather herbs for the mission's healer. She liked the quiet there, the sound of water trickling in the stream, the hum of bees between the sagebush, the rustle of quail darting through shadows. It made her feel alive in a way no scripture ever had. On one such late afternoon, the heat fading into soft gold and the horizon glowing with copper light, Maria knelt by the water to wash her hands. The surface shimmered like a sheet of glass. That was when she heard it. A soft crunch. A single snapped twig. She froze, her hand still in the water. Slowly, terrifyingly slowly, she lifted her head. Standing across the stream, half hidden among the desert brush, was a man. Not a man. A colossus. He stood tall, too tall. His chest broad, bare, marked with streaks of war paint and beads. His hair fell in black waves over his shoulders. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp, dark, and steady. The kind of eyes a wolf gives a deer before deciding if hunger or mercy will win. Maria's breath left her. Her heart hammered so hard she feared he could hear it. Are you here to kill me?" she whispered, voice barely a breath. The giant stepped forward, silent as a shadow. His presence swallowed the space between them, filling the air with something heavy, ancient, and wild. He tilted his head, studying her like a hunter puzzled by the courage of a trembling creature. Then he spoke. His English was deep, slow, accented like rolling thunder. No, I am here to take you. Before she could scream, before she could even stand, the giant crossed the stream with impossible speed. Water splashed. The world tilted. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, not rough, not cruel, but firm and final. She gasped as he lifted her from the ground like she weighed no more than a feather. The desert blurred around her as he carried her toward his horse, an enormous black stallion with fire in its eyes. He mounted in one fluid movement, pulling her tightly against his chest so she wouldn't fall. Maria's hands trembled as they clung to the horn of the saddle. His heartbeat thudded steady against her back, solid, terrifying, alive. She opened her mouth to scream, but her voice caught. She tried again, nothing. The shock had stolen her breath. The horse reared, then thundered forward. Behind them, the mission bell clanged wildly. Smoke rose. Voices shouted. Gunshots cracked through the canyon. Santa Fe had realized what happened. The most feared Apache in the territory had stolen the most protected virgin. As they rode deeper into the desert, the world shrinking behind them, Maria finally managed to whisper one word, broken, breathless, filled with fear and a strange, unwanted curiosity. Why? Dakota's voice rumbled at her ear. Because the spirits chose you. She shivered. Because for the first time in her life, Maria Esperanza Delgado, the innocent, sheltered, beloved virgin of Santa, felt the terrifying thrill of fate grabbing her by the hand and dragging her into the arms of a man whose very name made enemies pray. The desert swallowed the last cries of Santa Fe as Dakota's stallion carried them deeper into Apache land. The wind tugged at Maria's hair, whipping strands across her face, but she barely felt it. Her body trembled not from the cold of the coming night, but from the massive warrior holding her against him. Every heartbeat reminded her she was no longer in the world. She knew. Dakota didn't speak as they traveled. He rode with a fierce, unstoppable focus, eyes narrowed against the dying light, scanning the horizon like a predator watching for rivals. His arms, wrapped around her to steady her, were solid as carved stone. Maria's mind raced. Should she jump? Scream? Fight? But even in terror, she felt an odd certainty. If he wanted to harm her, she'd already be dead. The sun dipped below jagged cliffs when the canyon opened before them, hidden world carved into red earth. Smoke rose from small fires. Horses grazed near boulders. Shadows of men and women moved between leather-covered shelters. An Apache encampment. Every head turned when Dakota's stallion trotted in, his arrival like a thunderclap. Conversations died. Warriors straightened. Children clung to their mothers' skirts, and every eye narrowed when they saw Maria, the pale, frightened girl held tightly in the arms of the fearsome warrior chief. A woman stepped forward first, older, weathered, with braids streaked silver. Her gaze was sharp enough to cut stone. She looked Maria up and down once, then spoke to Dakota in Apache, a rapid, tense flurry of words. Maria didn't understand the language, but she understood the tone. Suspicion, anger, fear. Takod responded calmly, though his voice held a warning growl. Still cradling Maria, he dismounted in one effortless movement. Her feet touched the ground, but his arms stayed firm around her waist. The older woman barked a final retort and jabbed a finger at Maria. Dakota's voice dropped to a thunderous command. Woman fell silent instantly. Maria swallowed hard. What did she say? Dakota met her eyes. She fears you will bring soldiers. Will you hurt me if they do? He held her gaze for a long, heavy moment. I do not harm what I protect. The words sent an unexpected shiver through her. Another warrior, a Apache, young man with hawk feathers braided in his hair, stepped up, scowling at Maria. White woman caused trouble, he spat in accented English. Dakota moved so fast Maria didn't see the transition. One moment he was beside her, the next he was in front of her. Towering between her and a young warrior. She is under my shadow. Dakota growled. The warrior backed off immediately. Dakota guided her toward the largest shelter. The hide flap parted, revealing a space filled with furs, pottery, carved ornaments, and a low-burning fire. Warm, earthy scents enveloped her: smoke, sage, leather. He motioned for her to sit on a buffalo pelt. She hesitated, but exhaustion dragged her down. Her legs felt weak from fear, shock, and the long ride. Dakota crouched in front of her, surprising her with how gently he moved for someone so large. "You will not be harmed," he said. "This I swear." She studied his face, stern, unreadable, fierce, yet oddly calm. Not cruel, not wild. Something far more complicated. "Why me?" she whispered. "Why take me?" Dakota's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. The land speaks. The spirits show visions. They showed me a woman by water, a woman with eyes like the dusk. You walk where others fear. You walk the land without anger. Her breath caught. "A vision?" He nodded slowly. "You are meant for my path." Her heart pounded in confusion. Fate? Spirits? She barely understood the rules of her own world, let alone his. A sudden commotion erupted outside. Warriors called out, horses snorted sharply. Dakota rose in one powerful movement and stepped outside, lifting the flap. Maria, despite her fear, crawled forward to peek. Warriors gathered around a fire pit, speaking rapidly. From their gestures and tense faces, she understood even without words. They were angry about her, divided, afraid of what she represented: war, soldiers' blood. Dakota raised a hand. Silence swept the camp like a cold wind. He spoke with commanding authority. His voice echoed against canyon walls. The people listened, though not all looked convinced. When he finished, the crowd slowly dispersed. Maria sank back onto the furs, hugging her knees. The desert night grew colder outside, and fear gnawed at her chest. Would they kill her while she slept? Would Dakota allow it? She didn't know, but the truth hit her harder. She wasn't sure she wanted to escape him. Dakota returned and knelt beside her. "Eat," he said, placing a wooden bowl of warm venison stew in her hands. She stared at him. "Why are you being kind?" He met her gaze steadily. "I do not take what I cannot honor." She didn't understand, but she felt the weight of the words. That night, the wind howled through the canyon, carrying voices of ancestors, or so the Apache believed. Maria lay awake, wrapped in a thick woven blanket Dakota had placed around her shoulders. She heard footsteps outside. Then the flap parted and Dakota entered, moving with silent confidence. He sat across the fire from her, tending to his long knife with slow, steady strokes. The firelight threw shadows across his chest and shoulders, emphasizing every hard line of muscle. Maria found her gaze drifting to him, and quickly looked away, cheeks warming. "You fear me," Dakota said quietly, never looking up from his blade. "Yes," she whispered, because lying felt impossible before a man who could hear a rattlesnake a mile away. "But you do not fear me as you fear others," he said. She swallowed. "No." Dakota finally looked at her, and in his eyes she saw something that made her breath tremble. Not ownership. Not cruelty. A strange, deep recognition. "You have the heart of a deer," he said softly. Gentle but not weak. Her lips parted slightly. He returned to sharpening his blade, but his voice lowered further, the tone almost introspective. "When I saw you by the stream, I saw not an enemy. I saw a sign." A long silence stretched between them. Maria finally whispered, "What will happen to me?" Dakota's jaw flexed. You will learn our ways, our land, our people. And in time, his eyes lifted to hers, dark and intense. You will understand why you were chosen. Her pulse fluttered wildly. He stood. Sleep, the night is long. Maria lay down, trying to quiet her mind. The camp noises faded. The fire crackled softly. And though she didn't know when it happened, she realized Dakota had settled himself near the entrance, sitting cross-legged, alert, guarding her like a sentinel carved from the desert itself, not as a captor watching a prize, but as a protector watching what he cherished. The evening wind swept low across the desert, carrying the scent of sage and the metallic whisper of an approaching storm. In the Apache camp, small fires flickered like scattered stars fallen to earth, their glow pulsing over faces both weary and watchful. Yet amid the rustling hides, murmuring warriors, and horses shifting restlessly, one figure sat apart, the giant known as Tawodi, chief in all but name, feared even by men who feared nothing, and beside him, wrapped in a woven blanket, sat Elena Marlowe, the rancher's daughter who, just days ago, had been called a virgin saint by half the town, shielded and worshipped for her innocence. Now, she sat beside the most feared Apache warrior alive. Her heartbeat had finally begun to slow since the night of her taking. But something else had begun to replace the fear, something she couldn't explain. Something dangerous. Tawodi sharpened his knife with a stone, each scrape a soft warning in the dim. The firelight glinted off the blade before he sheathed it and finally turned toward her. "You watch me again," he said in low, steady English. "Why?" Elena startled. I wasn't. You were." He didn't smile, but the rough softness in his voice nearly counted as one. "You always do." Her face warmed. He made her feel seen in a way no man ever had, and that frightened her more than the knife on his belt. He lifted a strip of cooked venison and offered it to her. She hesitated, not because of pride, but because accepting anything from him felt symbolic somehow, a step across a line she wasn't ready to cross, but hunger outweighed confusion. She took it as she ate. He studied her in the flickering half-light. His gaze held no cruelty now, only a strange, unreadable curiosity. "You are not like the others in your town," he finally said. "When I took you, you did not scream for long." She swallowed, unsure if he was mocking her or admiring her courage. "I screamed enough." "Yes," he said simply, "but not like one who breaks." His voice lowered even further. "You are stronger than they think." No one, not one man in her life, had ever said that to her. Not her father, who treated her like crystal. Not the suitors in town, who admired her beauty but not her mind. Not the ladies at church, who whispered that she would marry some respectable gentleman and fade politely into domestic life. Tawodi, the feared Apache giant, was the first to speak to the part of her she kept hidden. The wind gusted, lifting her hair, carrying sparks from the fire. He reached out on instinct and brushed a stray ember from her shoulder. His fingers grazed her collarbone, rough, calloused, gentle in their own rugged way. Elena froze. So did he. For a long moment neither spoke. The air between them tightened like a stretched rope. "You do not fear my touch?" he asked quietly. It wasn't a question, it was a discovery that she could not answer. The storm clouds cracked far in the distance. Tawodi looked away first, his jaw clenching with effort. "Your people think we are only beasts," he said. "They say Apache feel nothing but rage, but I—" He inhaled through his nose, frustrated by emotions he had long since learned to bury. "I am not stone." She believed him. She felt it. Without thinking, Elena shifted closer to the fire and closer to him. Not touching, not yet, but near enough that the heat of his body radiated into her own. The proximity stirred something inside her, something bold, something wild. He noticed, of course. Tawodi noticed everything. "You come near," he murmured. "Not by force this time." She looked at her hands. "You saved me today." A few hours earlier, two drunken young warriors, angry that Tawodi had taken a white woman, tried to drag her away from the horses. Tawodi had struck them both down instantly, one with a backhand, the other with a blade drawn so fast it whistled. "You are under my protection," he said now, tone sharpened. "No one touches what I guard." His words sent a shiver through her, not fear, but something deeper. Something she wasn't ready to name. She exhaled shakily. "Why? Why protect me so fiercely?" He turned fully toward her, his size overwhelming the fire's glow. "Because," he said slowly, like choosing each word mattered, "I took you for vengeance that night. For war." His chest rose and fell with a heavy breath. "But now, vengeance is not what I think of when I look at you." Her lips parted. "Then what do you think of?" The answer came not in words but in the way his gaze moved over her, not lustful but captivated, reverent almost, as if seeing beauty in a form he never expected to desire. "You ask dangerous things." "Elena," he warned softly, "I want the truth." He leaned closer, his voice turning into a whisper that felt like a touch. "I think of the way you look at the mountains at sunrise, as if the world is bigger than the town you came from." His hand hovered near hers, not touching yet. "I think of how you walked into my camp with head high, even after I took you." A breath. "And I think that when you speak, my anger quiets." Her pulse fluttered wildly. She had never heard words so raw from any man. The storm wind picked up, whipping the flames sideways. Tawodi stood suddenly, grabbed another blanket, and draped it over her shoulders with a gentleness that made her chest ache. Then, without warning, thunder cracked across the plains. Elena jumped. Tawodi's massive hand came to her back, steadying her. It lingered, warm, strong, protective. Her breath caught. Slowly, carefully, she turned so she faced him, the blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. Her eyes lifted to his, dark, fierce, but softened now with something dangerously close to longing. "You saved me," she said again, her voice quieter this time. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he replied, "I did." Another roll of thunder. A streak of lightning across the horizon. Then, a moment that should not have happened. Her hand rose, trembling slightly, and touched the side of his face. Tawodi inhaled sharply, as if her fingertips branded him. His body tensed, not in rejection, but restraint. "Elena," he warned, voice almost hoarse, "you should not touch me like this." "Why not?" she whispered. "Because I am trying not to want you." And with that confession, everything between them changed. She stepped closer. Their bodies almost touched now. Her heart beat so loud she wondered if he heard it. "Tawodi," she whispered, "I'm not afraid." For the first time, the giant warrior let out a breath that sounded almost like surrender. His hand came up, cupped the side of her waist through the blanket. "Warm and possessive. You should be," he murmured, "because if I want you, I will not be gentle." Her lips parted. "Maybe I don't want gentle." Lightning flashed again, carving the two of them into a single silhouette against the storm-lit desert. A feared Apache giant and the rancher's daughter who was no longer the town's untouchable virgin, but something far more dangerous. A woman awakening. Her fate no longer belonged to the white town that raised her, nor to the warriors who resented her presence. It belonged to the man before her, man who had stolen her freedom and now threatened to steal her heart. The storm that had been growling across the desert finally reached the Apache camp by nightfall. The thunder rolled like wagon wheels in the sky, and each flash of lightning illuminated the tall pines at the valley's edge. Horses stamped nervously inside their makeshift corral, and the smell of rain clung to the air like a warning. Inside Tawodi's lodge, a large, sturdy shelter of hides stretched over wooden ribs, Elena sat on a woven mat, hugging the blanket close. The sound of rain drumming overhead should have frightened her, but strangely, she felt safer in that storm than she ever had back home. Because Tawodi was here, he stood at the entrance flap, broad shoulders filling the entire frame, scanning the camp with the focus of a man who trusted nothing, not even the sky. Lightning cut across the clouds, revealing his profile sharply, a warrior carved by war and weather, yet softened now by something he refused to name. When he finally ducked inside, the world seemed to shrink around him. "You are cold," he said. Not a question, a discovery. "I'm fine," she whispered. Though her shivers betrayed her, he moved closer, his footsteps silent. But she felt every shift of his presence like a change in the air pressure. Without a word, Tawodi pulled another hide blanket from his bedding and draped it around her shoulders, adjusting it until it fell just right. "You look after me more than you should," she said quietly. He raised his head, eyes dark and unreadable. "Should," he repeated. "That word does not guide me. How do you decide, then?" "The heart decides," he said simply, "even when I wish it would stay silent." Her breath hitched, not from the cold. Tawodi rarely admitted weakness, but here he was, confessing more than she'd earned. He sat across from her, legs folded, hands resting on his knees, posture tall and commanding even in stillness. The fire between them crackled softly, its small glow painting amber along his cheekbones. Elena studied him, the giant who had stolen her away only to protect her more fiercely than the men who claimed to love her. The man who had once looked at her with the sharp hunger of a captor, and now looked at her as if she were something precious and forbidden. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You care for me, don't you?" His jaw tightened. He didn't answer at first. The storm rumbled. "I did not want to," he finally said. "I fought it. You were meant to be a symbol, a message to your people." His gaze lifted to hers, intense enough to still her breathing. "But every day you are here, you become less symbol and more woman." Her chest fluttered. "And that," he added, "is more dangerous than any war." She swallowed. "Dangerous for who?" "For me," he said. The admission hit her like a soft blow. Elena leaned forward slightly, emboldened by the storm and the privacy of the lodge. "You think caring makes you weak?" "I know it does," he replied. "A warrior cannot protect a heart and a camp at the same time. But you're doing both." A flicker of something, frustration, longing, fear, passed across his face. Barely. Rain hammered harder on the hides, making the lodge pulse with sound. Elena's fingers tightened around her blanket. Her voice was steady, though her heart wasn't. "What are you afraid of, Tawodi?" He held her gaze for a long time, then exhaled slowly. "That if you stay in my life, you will break it." "Break you?" She shook her head. "You're the strongest man I've ever seen." "Strength is not armor," he said. "Not against you." Her breath trembled. For the first time since she'd been taken, Elena truly saw the man beneath the legend, the warrior who carried scars no one asked about, the leader who protected even when he bled, the man who had learned to fear attachment because survival demanded it, and she felt something shift inside her. Not out of pity, out of recognition. "You think you're the only one risking something," she whispered. "But I left everything behind. My home, my reputation. The life everyone said I was supposed to live." He leaned in just a little. "Do you regret it?" A bolt of lightning lit the lodge bright as midday. She didn't flinch. "No," she said. "I regret nothing." Tawodi inhaled sharply. Not because of the thunder, because of her answer. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, like a predator giving prey time to run if it wished. Elena didn't move back. She leaned forward until their knees almost touched. His voice grew low, thick. "You should regret this." "Why?" she whispered. "Because I am losing control of myself." The fire popped loudly. Elena's pulse roared in her ears. She reached out, fingertips brushing the back of his hand. The contact jolted both of them, like lightning between skin. He stared at their joined hands as if unsure whether to pull away or pull her in completely. "You're not hurting me," she said gently. "You never have." "That is the problem," he murmured. "I should have never let myself touch you gently." Her hand slid fully into his. "Tawodi, look at me." He lifted his gaze. Hunger burned there, not raw lust, but something far deeper, like a thirst denied for too long. "I'm not afraid," she said softly. His breath shook. "You do not understand what you say. Then show me." He froze, as if those 3 words were more dangerous than a rifle pointed at him. The fire crackled. The rain beat harder. The whole camp seemed to disappear, leaving only the 2 of them and the storm. Slowly, with trembling restraint, Tawodi lifted his other hand and touched her cheek. His thumb brushed along her jaw as if memorizing its shape. "You are fire," he whispered, "and I am wood. You will burn me." "Maybe I want to," she whispered back. His lips parted, shock and desire knotting together. Then he leaned in, not forcefully, not claiming, just surrendering. Their foreheads touched first. A soft, intimate press. His breath mingled with hers, slow, deep, trembling. The kind of closeness lovers shared before lips ever met. His voice came out ragged. "If I kiss you, there is no turning back." "Good," she whispered. "I don't want to turn back." Thunder cracked, and Tawodi broke. His mouth found hers in a kiss that felt like the storm itself, fierce, hungry, full of every suppressed emotion he'd tried to kill. His hand slid to her waist, pulling her against him, and she melted into him with a soft gasp that made him shudder. Elena kissed him back with the same fire, her fingers tangling in his braids, her body pressed against the heat of his. When he finally pulled away, he rested his forehead against hers, breathing hard. "This is madness," he whispered. "No," she said, cupping his face gently. "This is the truth." Rain roared outside, drowning out the rest of the world as the 2 of them sat woven together, a feared Apache warrior and the woman who shattered his walls without even trying. The storm raged. So did their hearts. The storm died sometime before dawn, leaving the world washed clean and silver blue beneath the early morning light. Rainwater clung to the pines like tears, and the smell of wet earth drifted through the Apache camp. Smoke from dying fires curled lazily into the air. Inside Tawodi's lodge, the world remained quiet, still, suspended. Elena woke first. She lay wrapped in the heavy hide blanket, her head resting where he had pulled her during the storm, against the warm rise of Tawodi's shoulder. The memory of the night before lingered on her lips, in her chest, in the way her body still felt the imprint of his hands. He hadn't claimed her fully, not yet. But his kiss had been a promise, a breaking of walls, a surrender no warrior like him ever gave freely, and she had kissed him back with a certainty she'd never felt in her life. The man who had stolen her from her world had somehow become the only truth she trusted. She watched him sleep now, peaceful for once. Tawodi rarely rested deeply. War and leadership had carved vigilance into his bones. But this morning his face was softened, almost unguarded, as if the storm hadn't battered the camp but had instead washed something clean inside him. She traced her fingers lightly along his forearm where it lay across her waist. His skin was warm, strong, marked by scars that told stories she didn't yet know. Stories she wanted to. For the first time since he'd taken her, Elena realized she no longer felt like a captive. She felt claimed, and claiming him back. A rustle at the lodge entrance shocked them both awake. Tawodi sat upright instantly, hand going to his knife. Elena tensed beside him, pulling the blanket up out of instinct. A young Apache warrior stood outside the flap, eyes lowered in respect but voice urgent. Tawodi, riders coming from the east. White men, many. Elena's stomach clenched. Her father's ranch was east. The town. Her people. Tawodi responded in Apache, sharp and low. The young man nodded and ran back through the camp. Tawodi rose to his feet, towering, already gathering his weapons. Elena scrambled up, heart beating too fast. It's them, isn't it? She whispered. They're coming for me. He paused. His fingers tightened on the grip of his knife. The silence was an answer. Elena felt a tremor of fear, not for herself, but for him. Her father wouldn't come alone. The town despised the Apache. The men who rode with him would want blood. They'd want vengeance. And Tawodi. He would fight. He would die before surrendering anything, especially her. Tawodi, she said urgently, stepping closer. Listen to me. His eyes flicked to hers, dark and burning. Your people do not come for peace. I know, she whispered. They will demand you back. I know. And they will spill my people's blood to get it. Her throat tightened. I know. He pulled his braid back over his shoulder and fastened the leather tie at the end, his face carved into cold determination now. It is time for you to return, he said. Her breath stopped. Return? He spun toward her, voice rough with barely leashed pain. If you stay, my people will die. If you leave, perhaps war can be delayed. She shook her head fiercely. I won't go back to a cage. His jaw clenched. Your father will burn this valley to ashes to retrieve you. Then let me speak to him. No, Tawodi snapped, sharper than he meant to. You are not a shield. You are not a tool. I'll not place you in a circle of rifles. She grabbed his arm. And I will not go back to them like I never belonged here. Like last night never happened. Like you mean nothing to me. His breath hitched. Just for a moment. But she saw what she meant to him. But the fear in his eyes wasn't fear of her father, it was fear of losing her. Elena, he said quietly, if you stay, men will die. If you go, only hearts break. She cupped his face with both hands, forcing him to meet her gaze. Then let mine be the only one to break. Not yours. His eyes closed for a long, tortured moment. When he opened them, they were softer than she'd ever seen. You do not understand how deeply you cut me, he murmured. Show me then, she whispered, voice trembling. Before you let me go. The warrior in him faltered. The man in him didn single quotes t. He gathered her face in his hands and pulled her into a kiss that was nothing like the storm-born one the night before. This one was slow, tender, full of longing and ache and truth. A kiss of goodbye. A kiss of promise. A kiss that sealed something unspoken between them. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers. If I live, he whispered hoarsely, I will come for you. Her tears slipped onto his thumbs. Then I will wait. I don't care how long. Boots pounded outside. Shouts rose. Horses cried. The air itself thickened with the coming of war. Tawodi straightened, strapped on his rifle, and lifted the lodge flap. Dawn lit the valley in shades of gold and gray. Warriors rushed across the camp. Women gathered children into the tall grass. Horses bucked in fear. He didn't turn back when he spoke. Stay in the lodge. Do not leave until I call for you. She stepped forward. Tawodi, his voice broke. Do not make me look at you, Elena. If I do, I will not fight. I will run with you instead. Her breath tore in her chest. He walked out into the rising sun. The valley shook with gunfire. Rifles cracked like snapping bones. Horses screamed. Men shouted in English and Apache. Smoke rose in thick plumes over the pines. Elena pressed both hands over her mouth, tears streaming silently as she watched shadows move in the chaos just beyond the lodge flap. Every shot felt like it tore into her. Every scream made her blood turn to ice. And then silence, heavy, awful. Her heart hammered as she pressed her face to the gap in the hide, searching desperately for any sign of him. Then she saw him. Tawodi walked slowly out of the smoke, rifle low at his side, chest heaving, hair wild, blood streaking one arm, but alive. She burst from the lodge without thinking. Elena! He caught her before she reached the mud, pulling her into his chest with a fierce, shaking embrace. His arms wrapped around her as if he were afraid she might vanish. I thought, she choked, breathless. I am here, he said roughly. I am here. She clutched his chest. My father? His jaw tightened. Wounded, not dead. He will ride home. She swallowed. And us? He looked down at her, truly looked like a man deciding the fate of his own soul. I told your father, he said slowly, that one day you may choose to return. And that when you do, no Apache hand will hold you back. Her heart twisted. And if I don't choose to return? His hand slid to her cheek. Then you are mine. And I am yours, no matter what lines the world drew before we met. Her breath broke in a soft, aching sound. He lowered his head until his forehead touched hers again. Just like in the storm, Elena, he whispered. Tell me your choice. She didn't hesitate. I choose you. The morning sun rose fully over the valley, lighting the smoke, the mountains, the battered camp, and the two of them standing in the center of it all, a feared Apache giant. A rancher's daughter, no longer innocent, no longer captive, but a woman who had found her heart in the most impossible place. Their story did not end here. It began.